Yeah, man, we did it. I'm so excited. This is gonna be awesome. This is huge for me. And so to meet you and to hear about how everything with your life and how you've turned it around and you found God and found the light of your life, which is really important.
Well, and I feel the same for you, bro. That, you've overcome a lot more than I have.
Well,
So
I mean, it's all relative, isn't it?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, yours were more personal and physical, and to get past what you've gotten past and lead, a fairly normal life, I would say, uh, is amazing. You just didn't give in, you didn't give up, and God found a way.
So for me, I'm gonna do something really fast and introduce everybody to my podcast. This is the Overcoming Challenges of Life podcast. And today I have former New York mobster and Kappa regime of the Colombo crime family and son of former underboss John Sonny Franzese. And he also speaks about overcoming the challenges and how he's dealt with it and how he's found positives. What is something that you look back at your life and you see your family and you see your dad and other people around you? Was there any true feelings of joy through that experience? Not just darkness.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to understand, I loved my dad very much growing up. I idolized him in a way. He was a great father in my younger days. And, to be part of something that he was part of was very important to me, and it meant a lot to me. So I had a very idealistic view of the life when I first got in it, because again, I'm part of something my dad was part of. We have an additional bond, a blood oath that we both took. So we bound by blood in that way also, and it was very special to me. So, and I did this, I got involved in life strictly because of my dad. I mean, I wanted to help him get out of a pretty severe prison sentence. And I thought by being part of that life, I would be able to benefit him in that way. So it was really all about my dad. So yeah, early on in that life, I had a very idealistic view, and there was more of a bright side than a dark side.
Hmm. Because in the movies, they show a lot of the dark sides um, of that lifestyle. Because they have to sell movies, right? And they have to get that intensity of some of those scenes, which is understandable. But they never show sometimes the side of like the good part of that lifestyle. They don't always show that. I mean, I don't know if there's a good thing about that life, but they don't show the happiest moments because it's a movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways they do. I mean, if you look at Goodfellas, they had some. I think what they try to show at times is the camaraderie that the guys have, the respect, the loyalty that's supposed to be there. They try to show it, but remember, it's an hour and a half, a 2 hour movie, and they want drama and they want conflict. You just
Yeah.
all the time. But there were many times, many days that I had a lot of fun with my crew, with the families that we had together. I had a lot of good times. I think in many ways, initially at least, the good times were better than the bad times. But then the bad times, when you're doing the wrong thing and you're in an illegal lifestyle, the bad times always catch up, and they eventually overcome whatever good was there.
I also heard this, and this fascinates me because I had the Medtronic Synchromed 2 pump put in that changed my life tremendously. The, the medical field, there wasn't, the technology wasn't there when I was a child, when I was young. And so I heard, watching a podcast, that you had with Mike Tyson. And I didn't know this about you, and I was fascinated, is that you were actually going to become a doctor. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I was a pre-med student, Hofstra University in New York, and I was planning to be a doctor. I wanted to go into pediatrics because I always cared a lot about children. And my life took a change when my dad went off to prison. But yeah, I mean, I had an interest in medicine, and my dad and mom, they were hopeful that I would become a doctor. That's what they wanted initially. And but I agree with you, David. God bless the hardworking, scientists and doctors in the medical field that come up with all of these cures and all of these things to make, our health better, our life easier. And I did watch the video.
Yeah.
And what a blessing to be able to. I mean, it's such a dramatic change for the better in your life. I mean, people who invented, discovered, whatever the word is, that device that's now making your life a lot more, a lot better to live in, I should say.
Yeah, big time. That's why I was really fascinated to get to know that about you. I like to watch podcasts because I enjoy artwork and the creative process. I paint a lot, and I get into that headspace and I put on a podcast and I just kind of let my thoughts and my brain absorb a different information. I'm always wanting to learn new things and understand things from a different perspective. I got to go and see how the pump is made. They showed me the process of this lab, and it is so outside the realm of my thought process. It just blew my mind because I'm like, these are the people that are fascinated with that particular field. And so, do you think if you would have gone away from that lifestyle in that life, would you have become a doctor?
And
Like, is that something that you would have really had a calling for?
Well, let me say this, in all honesty, I can't say that I was really, really passionate about it. But I was a pretty good kid, I would say, in that I like to please my mom and dad. Yeah, I know it meant
which everyone does.
yeah, I was a good student, and I was always, very impressed with medicine and that field and what doctors were able to accomplish. So yeah, I think I would have, and I was a pretty good student. I was fairly smart, so I think I would have made it through medical school. Now my daughter who went to Pepperdine University, she was a pre-med student.
Wow.
Yeah, she's very smart. She didn't finish up. She's now a personal trainer, so she's kind of in it, in a different way. She's kind of
Yeah.
way, but yeah, I mean, I think I would have followed through. I'm pretty sure. My family, is next to God is first in my life, obviously. My wife and I have been married 36 years. I know her since she's 20 years old. Just, but here we are together all of these years. And my children, I have 7 children. I was married once before for a brief time, and we had 3 children. So I have 7 altogether. And, family is everything. I mean, I was brought up that way. My father was all about family. And, they're number one in my life. Look, the Bible tells us, as men, if we don't take care of our families, basically, what good are we? So, everything I do is built around my family, I would say. Like I have this pizza store, and my whole family's working there, and we go on vacations together. And every Sunday we have a Sunday meal together, and every holiday I demand that we're all together. So, and that's tradition. It's kind of Italian tradition. My wife is Mexican. They're very family oriented.
Yeah. Very.
So, it's everything. I mean, And look, and I was a guy, in my former life, I had people around me all the time. I had friends around me all the time. And even,
Yeah.
now, I mean, I have a huge, fairly huge, I would say, social media presence, and people are on me all the time. And in the pizza store, every other person that comes in knows me from social media. So, um, but it's all about family. At the end of the day, that's what's important to me.
I mean, before the pump, I didn't have a close relationship with my family. I didn't. I didn't. I, I retreated back in within myself because I was in so much pain that I was like, I just want to push everything away. And then when I had that pump, it was like I started communicating with everybody, and then I recently my mom and my uncle and my grandparents, who I was really close to, they all passed away a little while ago, and the the thing that I draw myself to and that like makes sense to me when you talk about family and how important it is and how with God and how man is supposed to be close together is I got a chance to say my forgiveness to two people that I had a lot of conflict with. And by doing that, it has allowed me to have this weight lifted off my shoulders that I don't have to carry around anymore.
I totally understand that, and I preach that to many people. Forgiveness uh, is such a way to lighten the burden that you're carrying around. Because when you're angry with somebody or you're unforgiving, you carry that burden with you all the time. You think about it, when you're in their presence, if you're in their presence, or even when you're not in their presence. And I always tell people, releasing that burden off your shoulders by just being forgiven. Sometimes you don't forget, but you do forgive. And when you can forgive like that, it's a much better experience for yourself and for those who you've forgiven.
I mean, my family, I'll give you an example about how important family is to me and how that made that forgiving it enhanced my relationship with my whole family. Everybody walked up to me and started thanking me and how big of me that was. And I was sitting there going, I just gave that out of my heart and it was gone. And now I don't have to carry that. And it's so awesome because now I'm like doing this, doing that, going here, going there, because I don't have to drag all that weight anymore.
Well, David, one thing that I tell people all the time too, and when I'm sharing my testimony and when I'm counseling people, coaching people, you know, um, disappointment. I don't get disappointed that easy. And if I do, it's very brief because I always say, you know what? If something didn't work out for me, it just wasn't meant to be. And I move on. If I know I put an effort into it and I tried something and it didn't work, my disappointment is fleeting. It goes away. I say, okay, this didn't work. Let's move on to the next thing. Maybe it's not what God intended for me. It wasn't his purpose in my life. And I tell my children too, people are always going to disappoint you, almost always, because they're human. I tell my kids, I'm going to disappoint you as much as I don't want to, and as much as I love you. There are times when I will disappoint you. Well, you need to be forgiving and you need to move on because the bottom line is I do love you. I know you love me. Um, and if you can have that kind of an attitude in life, it's very refreshing. It makes life a lot easier. You're not carrying that burden. We have enough burdens in life that we're going to,
Right.
just things that come out of nowhere at times that we have to deal with. A pandemic that nobody thought was ever going to happen.
My heart attack that I never thought I would have at such a young age, and yet I continue to move forward. Because I don't want to stop building with what I have going on in my life right now. Let me tell you something. I got to reset my time clock of my life. When I got that pump and I had to do the reset, everything, my attitude and everything about me, I actually become as balanced as I can be. Instead of being in the negative and dwelling in that area, I couldn't see the light of day.
That's Well, what a blessing. I can tell you, I had an experience when I was in grammar school. There was a fellow, I'll never forget his name. His name was Kevin McFarland. And we were in the schoolyard one day. He was an epileptic, and he fell down, had an attack, a spasm, and he fell down right next to me. So I grabbed his head because he banged his head on the pavement. We were in the schoolyard, and I grabbed him, and somebody told me grab his tongue because he swallows his
Yep.
tongue. And I did that, and he came out of it, but it was pretty traumatic for me at a young age. But I was in a Catholic school, and from that point on, the nuns said, because you did such a good job, you are going to be his lifeguard. You're going to watch him. And I said, oh my Lord, man. So this young man had an attack almost every single day. And I stood by him. And I tell you, just watching that was hard for me. So I can imagine going through it. And this poor young guy, I mean, we were both young at that time.
Yeah.
I can tell you how many times I would say, but he should be sitting down. He falls down in the schoolyard, could crack his skull or something like that. But so, in a way, I can just imagine, in a way, what you had to live through all those years. Gosh, David, that had to be very, very difficult.
After the pump, for 2 years, I painted basically every single day. Every single day. And then I was like, what else do I want to do in my life? So I wrote a book. I decided to write a book of poetry, and it's on Amazon. And so now I'm doing my podcast. And it's like, I love learning so much because I don't have to focus on the negative all the time. And my soul can grow, I can grow, and I can continue to learn. And that's what's important to me.
Well, that's great. And, just doing this podcast and bringing people on that have, been through challenges and overcame them, you'd be surprised how many people relate to that, because everybody's dealing with something in their life.
So true.
It's everybody. And to hear that other people have overcome challenges worse than their own is very inspiring and very motivating. I mean, I hear that all the time, but I would much prefer going through what I've gone through in my life than having to go through what you've gone through. And the fact that you've been able to get to this point and overcome it is amazing, and it's just wonderful, and it's a blessing.
Yeah, and that's how I see it. Is that you can get through these difficult things, these hard times in life. It can be difficult. It isn't easy, but I think struggle is something that you have to deal with. I mean, to have somebody pick you up and do things for you and your place, and if it isn't clean and you're not organized, then the minute you get a pump and boom, reset. I mean, I start organizing, and that's a boost of confidence, and it's like my brain going, okay, now I can do it. And I did it, and my house is clean, and that's base one. Because you always got to start out with a base. It's important to start out with that base level and keep it clean. And there's baby steps. And then I wrote it down, and I was on the news, and I wrote it down, and I took the steps because I write a lot. And it's something I've always done. Have you ever done something like that? Where you sat down and you were like, this is my main goal. And then broke it down into even smaller goals, right? So you have your goal set, posts. And then you can navigate your way after doing all those goals, because you know you can do it.
Not really. I mean, I'm a very much of an action guy. I just
Mhm.
do things, I mean,
Yeah.
I get something in my head and I just go for it, and I get it done, or I try to get it done as best I can. But I do understand where you're coming from, and I tell people in business all the time, if you're going to go
Mhm.
to business, business, you're just starting off, make sure you have a plan. You know,
Yep.
a written plan that you can look at, that others can look at, that is a guide for you to get through. It's well thought out. It's something, it's kind of your Bible, in business. So I tell people that all the time. But I'm more of a, okay, I'm going to get this done. And I've been around a long time now, David. I kind of know the steps that I have to follow in order to get something accomplished.
Yeah, I totally feel that. So the biggest thing with me is understanding that you can go from that dark area and slowly approach your way out of it. And yes, there's not all going to be great days, because that's not how life works. But I think it's important to pay attention to the small moments that really make the difference. Like as a kid, I didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't have the brands that I wanted. Well, guess what? As an adult, I go to the thrift store, and for $1 or $3, I buy a shirt with the brand Calvin Klein that somebody spent $70 on. And I can look nice because that's what I've always been able to do, is been resourceful in that way. Do you think that's a good attribute to have as a person, is being resourceful at every level of life you're in?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be a sucker that pays $70 like me, smart enough to go and pay $3, I mean, no, I mean, look, you got to find different ways to get things done in life. We always have obstacles and roadblocks. You got to know how to get around them. I tell people all the time, listen, God never promised us heaven on earth. He promised us heaven in heaven, but he always promised that he would have our backs for those that who believe in him and trust him and abide by him. But we're always going to have obstacles that we have to overcome, and you got to be resourceful. You can't just sit on your back and say I can't do this and just give up. you know um, Sometimes for health reasons, obviously you just can't move forward. We understand that, but in every other situation, when you're able to pick yourself up, move forward, you just have to. And I'll tell you another thing that I tell people. When I was a kid, I remember one time my mother, she was very strict with me, extremely strict. And she had, I don't know, yelled at me for something. Maybe she even, back then you didn't go to jail if you were a parent for, giving your kid a spanking. But
Yep.
my uncle Joe was a merchant marine. He was a hard drinking, just really a rough guy. He spent, I don't know, 30 years at sea.
Whoa.
I came in and he looked at me and I probably had a tear in my eye and he said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Mom did this and that and that." He said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "You got a dictionary?" I said, "Yeah, Uncle Joe, why?" He said, "Go get the dictionary." So I go up and get the dictionary. He opens it up to the word sympathy. And he said to me, "I want you to look at this word, find out what it means, and don't ever look for it again, ever in your life."
Oh my goodness.
And
You just struck a topic, man.
I never forgot that. I never forgot it, because when you look for sympathy, you're not getting the job done. You're not accomplishing anything. Even the people that sympathize with you, they're not helping you. Maybe they're just, making you feel good for the moment, but you're not getting stuff done. So I never forgot that, and I think in your case, you were a guy that was going to find a way to get things done in your life and to improve your situation. That's what you did, and of course you had help, but you kept looking, and that's important.
Yeah, and I had to get a lot of my mind in the right spot too. I had intense counseling after my pump. I had like two counselors come over to my house and take me out and take me fishing and take me different places to get my, and to, because I have anxiety, and so a person that has anxiety, when I'm in the situation, I'm okay, but the before point, I am anxious like there's no tomorrow. So I think you just, if you want to conquer something, you have to have the power, the willpower to do it. Nobody can do that for you, and it is tough. Anxiety and all these different things are tough, but I think if you do small steps, that leads to bigger steps that you can conquer things with. And I think a lot of people deal with a lot of anxiety. I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, anxiety. Look, I have a daughter that has anxiety. I don't understand it that much. But she's young. Yeah, I have actually two daughters that are just anxiety all the time. Every little thing, gets them going. And I don't understand that as much, but I see it in them, and I feel for it because it's something that they do try to control, but it just overtakes.
Well, I'll give you an example. When I had a panic attack and say I'm in public, well, we were at a raceway and I was with my counselor. And we went to this racetrack and I was just sitting there watching the cars go around and I was fine. And then all of a sudden, I get hit by this feeling of like, oh, I just want to, yeah, I want to scream. I just get inside myself and I'm just like that's how it feels, that energy of just that tightness and just wanting to scream. And anxiety just comes in, and my counselor has taught me that he's like, okay, what's in front of you? All right, there's some cars in front of you. There's a racetrack. Okay, cool. What's even more around you? Towns, houses. Okay, cool. And that's it. And so the distraction away from the anxiety.
Well, I know it's a real, dilemma, I would say. It's a real condition or whatever you may want to call it, because I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it in others too, but it's something that I've never really experienced. Although I don't know, maybe when your heart starts beating a little faster for something, but I've never had an extreme anxiety attack or anything like that. But again, I've seen it. I've seen it. So I do understand it. It's something you have to try to control or overcome if you can.
And that's the biggest thing. I also put in my book, there's issues with suicide and there's tons of that going on in today's world. So, in the very last page of my book, I put the suicide prevention hotline number and I wrote a story about how I was in a really dark place and I I wish I would have reached out because I wouldn't have made the pain so bad. And I wouldn't have made those dark thoughts. And when you deal with stuff like that, it gets overwhelming because I realize the biggest people I would hurt is my family. And that would crush everybody. So for me, it was, I don't want to do that to all those people. I know that they would just be like, whoa, what just happened? David, what?
I'll tell you something even more,
And
David. I have a very dear friend who's the chief of police over at UCLA, the university here in Los Angeles. And he tells me that he deals with one student suicide a month, one a month. I said, you got to be kidding. He said, no. And who knows what the cause is? Maybe they're, trying too hard or, peer pressure or social media nonsense that's going on. Who knows what the
it's
cause is?
serious.
But one a month, and that's a horrendous number, for these young people to be committing suicide over stress related things that have to do with school or peer pressure. It's terrible. And, as far as the internet is concerned and social media, yes, it's a blessing in many ways, but it's also, I'm telling you, it's also a very rough place for especially our young people. It really is.
For me, I use them as tools, and I can navigate it a lot better now. But when I was a kid, the bullying I had gone through in high school, because I had a bully that bullied me on a daily basis. But once the bell rang, I was free of that. So it ended. And now today, because of online, they get nastier. And when they're not in front of that person, they can even get more nastier. It's a very difficult thing for a young person to navigate.
It's all about education because remember, now people can bully you without facing you. You know, you don't know who they are. You can't really retaliate. If you try to retaliate online, it's just a war of words. It gets nastier.
Mhm.
Is really it became a forum. The internet became a forum for people that are angry, that are disillusioned, that have things on their mind, that are bitter, just to take it out on anybody and everyone they want to. I mean, I get a lot of blowback for some things that I say, and people still call me a mobster from 25 years ago. And I mean, with me, I don't pay attention to it. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I understand people, and what a lot of them I'll say, I hope you're having a better day. And obviously there's things on your mind, but for young people, it's very hard. My daughter also is in the entertainment industry a bit. And I told her, you got to be prepared. Not everybody's going to like you and everybody's going to be kind to you. And you got to let that roll off your back. You can't take it serious. You can't take that criticism as being, because these are people that have their own issues that they deal with. It's really their problems, not yours, and they're trying to lay it on you. So you got to be prepared for that. But so many of our young people are not, because it's hard to take, when people are bullying you or criticizing you or being nasty and mean and saying tough things. It's hard, especially for young women, really hard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, expectations. They see an image on the screen, and I've done a little bit of photography. I've done a little bit, and I know that you can airbrush things, and there are things that you can do that will shrink certain areas of the body, and that's not necessarily the person that was originally in the photo that took the photo. It to a certain point, so it, the expectations are right. Expectations, it's hard. It's
We live in
difficult.
a tough world, David. We really do. And the internet, as much of a blessing as it's been, in many ways, it's been very, very harmful in many ways also. And listen, I mean, look, the pornography industry online is thriving, and it's hurting a lot of young men and a lot of young women
Yep.
in a big way. We don't hear about it all the time, but it's there and it's accessible. And if you read some data on it, every once in a while there'll be something posted about the effects that this is having on, the sex of young people. And it's I
They
don't know
expect
what the
more
answer
and
is.
more aggressive, and
It's not going to go away. I mean, it's only, in my opinion, it's going to get worse. And the more liberal and progressive we get, the more we allow these things to go on or we promote them, the worse it's going to be. But it's the world we live in.
it's crazy. It's overwhelming too, because like y- y- you would want to help a lot of people, but then it's like you can only do so much. So if you're not in a good place, and if you're in a bad negative place, you can't always help people. I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to put my message out there. I always wanted to talk like this and put things out there, but I wasn't ready for it. Do you think that some people have to go through a lot of trials of life to get to a point where they then see the bright side of it? Do you think that they have to go through a lot of that to actually appreciate life fully for what it is?
I don't think everybody has to go through that, but I think that a lot of people do. I mean, look, I always appreciated life, but I appreciated it more when it got taken away from me, when my freedom was taken away from me. Um, and various struggles and challenges that I personally went through, I have a greater appreciation for life as it is. As I get older, I'm turning 70 this year. I have a greater appreciation for life, because your time is getting short. Um, so it's not a bad thing to go through trials and challenges if you come out of it the right way. And that's the key. And that's where God means so much to me, because it's all about your outlook. It's how you deal with it. It's not so much what you're going through, but it's how you deal with what you're going through and what kind of impact it has on you in the end. And if you can turn every negative into a positive in some way and be a light to the world, well, then you're accomplishing a lot. And I think that's what all of us should strive to be able to do.
Well, I'll give you an example. My dad, I love him so much. He's everything to me. He adopted me when I was really young and married my mom, and he's my dad. I call him my dad. I don't ever call him my stepdad. So my dad, when we lived in Nevada, he had a struggle. He struggled with gambling and alcohol and stuff like that, and then moved to California, and he's an electrician, and he owns his own house, has a successful business, turned his life around, goes to church, and realizes the good things in life. And seeing my dad turn his life around, like that made me like appreciate like how strong of a person he is, because that was a major issue in his life.
Well, I tell you, I applaud you, Dad, because I know I've seen people get destroyed over gambling and alcohol, and weren't able to come back from it. So I know it's be very, very difficult to overcome that addiction, that habit, that challenge. So the fact that your father was able to do that, look at how it motivated you. I'm sure others the same way. So he is to be applauded for that, because it's not easy. These things are not easy.
Mm-mm. No, no, and to I mean the hold that it had on him, it was intense. It was intense, and gambling can be a real. I live in Carson City, so it's like there's gambling, and then there's Reno, and then there's Vegas. I mean, it's gamble, gamble, gamble. Like, and they don't just give money out, by the way. They don't. That's not how that works. But the biggest thing, what's something that if you could look back on your life, what is a lesson that you learned that you would tell yourself, your 20-year-old self, like if you could go back and just and have a conversation with him and give him, you could only give him one piece of information, what would it be?
Well, I think, as the overall message that I would send people is accountability is everything in life. Who you become accountable to is going to dictate the way your life is going to run. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. When I was in the mob, I was accountable to the oath that I took. I was accountable to my boss. I was accountable to all the wrong things in many ways. And it caused a lot of grief for me and my family. When my life has turned around through God's work and effort, I became accountable to God. I became accountable to my wife, to my children. I wanted to make sure that I did the right thing, so I didn't disappoint them, so I didn't, have them go through more struggles and challenges. So what I tell young people and what I would tell everybody out there listening, it's important who you are accountable to in life, because that is going to dictate the way your path in life is going to go. So become accountable to the right things. Become accountable to a God who gave us a commandment: love God and love your neighbor. Be accountable to your family, that you don't want to put them in grief. Be accountable to good people around you that care about you and that want to see you do the right thing. If you can do that in your life, you're going to be okay. You really are, because you'll have challenges and struggles and obstacles, but you're going to be on the right path. And at the end of the day, that's what's important. The path that you choose to take in your life.
I think that's the biggest thing that I think connects a lot of people to each other and to everybody is that uh, we all have a choice, and it's called free will. And we all can choose what we want to, and that's what we have. We have that choice to be able to choose
We
what
do.
I mean. So yeah, that's that. What's something that what's your takeaway from this discussion today?
Well, it's overcoming obstacles, overcoming challenges, not giving up. And when you do overcome those obstacles, to make something out of it, for yourself and for others, and be a light in this world. There's a lot of darkness, but if you can be a light, um, you know, I have found out one of the things I've been speaking now for 25 years, and I know so many people have been impacted in a positive way through what God has done in my life. And I give the credit to God because He's the one that transformed my life and gave me the message and gave me as an example for people to look at and say, hey, if this guy can overcome and come out of a dark place and overcome those struggles and obstacles, then I can do it too. And there's so much joy and satisfaction in seeing that you have a positive impact on people, that you've been able to help them in some way, motivate them, show them. And I get emails and I get messages all the time. Michael, thank you. I tuned into YouTube and I saw you, or I heard you speak at a church, or I read your book, and my life has turned around. And just to hear that is so satisfying. It's better than putting money in your pocket. It's better than a joyride. It's better than anything that you can have. And
I feel honored, by the way. Thank you for speaking with me. I feel very blessed, very honored, and I'll have to get some information from you, but I want to send you a painting of mine for you to put up in your home, if you don't mind.
and I applaud you. And I feel it a blessing to have met you. And I thank my wife for, connecting us in this way. And, maybe we can do something again in the future, but you
That
just,
would be awesome.
keep what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And I wish you all the success on this podcast. I'm sure you'll be able to be a light to a lot of people out there, and just keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you again. I really appreciate everything. And so we're going to end this podcast, and I will see you all later.
Okay. Take care now.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.